lovely producer in my ear telling me we've got 1 minute, so if you want to drink, then it's got to go.
Let's go. That's me.
This is really testing your skills.
See, we were supposed to have 3 different cocktails, but unfortunately time is against us.
I thought that was... It didn't seem ambitious.
And we don't want our panel to go home too drunk. What would people say?
Well, exactly.
They say GB News, it just makes its guests, tipsy.
So, little bit. You can take them as soon as I put the ice if you want.
Okay, ice.
Ice.
This one does look...
We're gonna have to try them and then immediately go to the end of the show. This looks delicious.
There we go.
I like the look of this one.
Baby apple.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, yours.
Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, and we've got a little garnish.
Wow.
Yes, and it's a tiny apple. Many people.
Busy apple.
Yes, many people confuse them with cherry, but
Well, a quick
actually.
cheers.
Right, cheers,
everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers, all.
Cheers.
And where can people find you on Instagram?
Yes, on Cocktail Circus, actually.
Cocktail Circus.
Yes,
That's
very
a good
simple.
name.
It is a fancy
Actually,
name,
I prefer this. This is fantastic.
The tequila is doing the
Thank you very much.
difference.
That is
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
delicious. I hope everyone at home is having a nice drink or a cup of tea or whatever is their tipple of choice. That's all we have time for tonight. My thanks, as always, to my lovely panel. I think they've done a tremendous job, and all of my guests tonight. Next up, it's the best of headliners.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Ray Addison with the latest news. The Governor of the Bank of England is warning that interest rate increases could be bigger than previously thought. Speaking in Washington, Andrew Bailey said a stronger response may be needed to fight inflation. The central bank is set to announce its next monetary policy decision on November the 3rd. Investors are widely expecting another hike in the base rate.
The MPC will respond to all this news at its next meeting in just under 3 weeks from now, just after the 31st of October. This is the correct sequence in my view. We will know the full scope of fiscal policy by then. But I repeat what I've said already. We will not hesitate to raise interest rates to meet the inflation target. And as things stand today, my best guess is that inflationary pressures will require a stronger response than we perhaps thought in August.
Well, those comments come after a think tank suggested that more than 5 million homes could face annual mortgage repayments of more than £5,000 by the end of 2024. The Resolution Foundation says the predicted increase follows the mini-budget, which saw banks pulling deals from the market. The average 2- and 5-year fixed-term mortgage rates are now at their highest levels since 2008. The Chancellor has admitted that the government went too far, too fast in its push to grow the economy. Jeremy Hunt says his focus will be stability. However, difficult decisions on spending and tax will need to be made to get debt falling. He has, however, promised to protect and help struggling families and businesses when he sets out the government's fiscal plan at the end of the month. Well, meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of grotesque chaos over her decision to sack Kwasi Kwarteng as Chancellor. Speaking at a party conference in Yorkshire and Humber, he said Liz Truss is clinging on to power. Sir Keir says there's no precedent for what the government has done to the economy.
We need to reverse the budget in full. We need to stabilise the economy. And frankly, I don't think changing the personnel at the top of the Tory party is the change that we need in our country. We need a change of government. We need a Labour government that will restore economic credibility, have a stable and proper plan for the future, a funded plan, so this country can actually move forward again.
The footballer Mason Greenwood has been charged with attempted rape. The Manchester United forward is due to appear in court on Monday, also accused of coercive behaviour and assault. The 21-year-old was first questioned in January over the allegations after images and videos were posted online. The Crown Prosecution Service says all 3 counts relate to the same person. Hundreds of farm workers, food producers and environmental activists marched through central London earlier on today. Members of the Land Workers Alliance are calling for sustainable farming. They say the government must maintain its environmental land management subsidy schemes and protect the UK's growing standards in global trade deals. 3 Just Stop Oil protesters appeared in court earlier accused of criminal damage. Anna Holland from Newcastle and Phoebe Plummer from southwest London both pleaded not guilty to the charge after soup was thrown at a Van Gogh painting. The sunflowers artwork was protected by glass, but the frame was not. Another activist, Laura Johnson from Southwold, pleaded not guilty to charges of criminal damage after paint was sprayed on the new Scotland Yard sign. In international news, Russia's President Vladimir Putin says he has no plans to launch more airstrikes days after the heavy bombardment of Ukraine. 100 long-range missiles were fired at targets across the country, including the capital Kyiv this week. Putin also promised an end to the mobilization of troops, saying he'll stop calling up reservists in 2 weeks. Hundreds of thousands of men have already been summoned to fight in Ukraine. The Russian forces are still losing ground in the east and the south of the country. The number of people killed during a mine explosion in northern Turkey currently stands at 41. 110 people were said to be working at the site when the blast occurred yesterday. 58 miners have been rescued. The country's President, Erdogan, visited the area in northern Bartın province as funerals for some of the victims were held. An investigation into the cause of the blast is underway. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. We'll have more at the top of the next hour.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking dry with plenty of sunny spells for most, with scattered showers in the northwest. Let's take a look at the details. Scattered, locally heavy showers mainly in the west, with the driest conditions and best of the sunny spells in the east. It'll be a windy, gusty start too. A blustery and mostly dry start across Northern Ireland with sunny spells, although the odd, locally heavy shower also likely in the north. Scattered, locally heavy showers across northwest England with some sunny spells. It'll be a windy start with potential gale-force gusts along the coast. It'll be a blustery start to the day, especially around the coasts, with local gales possible. Mainly dry with plenty of sunny spells, although the odd heavy shower remains possible at first. There'll be a fresh westerly wind and chilly start across East Midlands. East Anglia will have a dry start to Sunday morning with plenty of early sunshine across the board. Initially breezy, but winds gradually easing. A chilly start for all. A chilly start across southern England with only a light breeze. It'll be mostly dry with plenty of early Sunday sunshine, although the odd coastal shower is possible. Fine, dry and sunny for most. Showers easing across the northwest, while gales and heavy rain gradually approach from the west. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Welcome to Headliners Best of the Week. This is your chance to catch up on some of the most significant news stories of the last 7 days and hear what our comedian panellists had to say about them. Well, we're going to kick off with the precarious position of the Prime Minister from Saturday's Times. Sajila, what are they saying?
So Liz Truss insists she won't resign after making Jeremy Hunt Chancellor. And I think I've been following this all day long on the TV. And she basically held her questions with the press.
Yep.
And literally only took 4. And it was like she was playing Russian roulette. Literally, like, I'm going to go for... and hoping that no one was going to shoot her.
Really?
And she didn't really answer any of the questions. But she's basically replaced Kwasi Kwarteng, who is in some corner somewhere crying,
Yes.
probably singing Alanis Morissette.
That's what you do, isn't it, when you lose
that's
a
what
job?
you do.
Yeah.
And, so there's, it's, you know, she's basically saying kind of fighting talk, coming back. She doesn't think she's going to go. But let's not forget that yesterday, I think it was, that Kwasi said, we're here for another month.
Oh, no, he was very determined that he's staying on.
We didn't even last another day.
But that's how we knew. I mean, we knew he was gone for the job because he was so determined.
And in her very kind of like Eliza Doolittle voice that she has, she said, what I've done today is made sure that we have economic stability in the country. Has she really?
Nick, what do you think? Because, you know, some would say that sacking a Chancellor after such a short period of time is a sign of desperation. What do you think?
It's not good, Andrew, definitely. And especially when you hire Jeremy Hunt as the replacement, who Jeremy Hunt loves China. I mean, his plan for economic growth is to invade Taiwan, or as he calls it, the rightful province of China. You know how he loves China. During the lockdowns, he was saying we should copy China. Anyway, so Hunt is a terrible idea. But yeah, Truss is in obviously massive trouble. As Sajila said, she was asking for questions at the press conference, but none of them were good. Basically, it was like she went to the Telegraph thinking they might be sympathetic. They were like, why didn't you resign? Then it was the Sun. Why didn't you resign? And it was like, Peston, why didn't you resign and apologise? So she kept trying to get a good question, and it was not forthcoming. I think she's in massive trouble. The only way she can really recover, in my opinion, is some sort of Hail Mary, like some horrible escalation happens in the war, and she's seen to deal with it well or something. It would take something...
the way that Margaret Thatcher regained popularity after the Falklands?
She needs a Falklands.
She needs a Falklands.
She needs one fast.
Well, I don't know.
So why did she invade, I don't know, Wales?
She kind of had a Falklands, because she went over those talks, didn't she, initially, with Putin before he invaded, to try and talk him down, and then he invaded.
Yes.
And then the Queen, she went to meet her, and then she died, and then she killed our economy, and she nearly killed our pensions. So basically, everything she touched
not looking good. But this thing with Kwarteng as well, you kind of think, you know, it's been, you know, what's that? That'll be the fourth. Jeremy Hunt will be the fourth Chancellor this year. I mean, they are dropping like flies.
I mean, it's like Duracell battery advert.
It's not good. So can she drop? Can she pull? I mean, she was saying at the televised press conference today, she was saying the mission stays the same. But is that just doggedness? Is that wise? You know, if the mission is clearly not working out for her, would she be wise at this point to just pivot and maybe change?
Yeah, well, she obviously is pivoting with all the U-turns on the budget. Look, in a way, the one thing you can say for Truss is that she went with her beliefs. She believed in growth. She believed in this kind of quasi-Thatcherite budget, so she did it. The smarter thing, the more prudent thing, of course, would have been to basically carry on Boris's agenda, but without the dodgy moral character. That's actually what people pretty much voted for. But she didn't do that. And I've been reading Dominic Cummings' blog. I've been reading it quite a lot to the point where I think I need to go for an eye test, but that's a joke from 2020. But he put that their actions, meaning Liz Truss and her team, resemble what you'd see if her enemies could brief on her behalf a few times per day. I mean, it has been that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Sajila, of this intimation that there's going to be a backdoors plot to install a joint ticket of Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, the thing is, they're going to go for that. And I hear, apparently, that all the WhatsApp groups, you know, of MPs is going crazy right now.
Of course they are.
Plotting and planning. Of course, and wouldn't you just love to be a fly on those kind of...
Well, that's where the strategies happen, except we will find out because they always leak.
I know, they always leak, conveniently. But I think because they could do it, but what good? So what good? Because yes, you can overthrow her. You can get someone else in. She was unpopular from the beginning. Why didn't you get that? The public never really got on the with the back of her.
They didn't go for Kemi. Which
they're not going to, and like you said, the public are not going to want Maud and Sunak. And the question is now: is it an existential threat for the party? That's the question. Are we going to need this new start-up party that Cummings wants? You know, are the Tories going to finally be obliterated? I mean, they've managed to survive all kinds of things. We had the Michael Howard sort of wilderness years when everyone said they were done, and they are very robust. But can they survive this?
We're going to crack on this third section with Tuesday's Guardian bringing us a story about a major development here at GB News.
Yes, John Cleese to host GB News show as he rails against cancel culture, and he's quoted people at GB saying that people say it's a right-wing channel, it's actually a free speech channel, which of course is true, but you wouldn't know that if you went on Twitter today. You had all sorts of reactions. This Femi was saying, I used to adore you, John Cleese. Your parody of Hitler was so good, but now you're siding with the far right Ofcom-regulated channel.
Absolutely insane. I mean, there is a kind of hysteria that won't go away among certain people on Twitter, people like Femi, who have bought into this myth that GB News is this far-right thing, and it just isn't true.
And they've never watched it.
No.
We're regulated by Ofcom. We try and be very balanced. We have all kinds of people on. I mean, Paul Sinner said it was homophobic. It's like, we have so many gay presenters. I mean, it's honestly, Andrew, it's almost too many.
Gay presenters.
That is ridiculous. And people have all sorts of responses. Daniela Naj said that who cares about John Cleese? She's never watched GB and doesn't intend to, and she felt we should all know that. And I love this response. Someone had said, such a fantastic company. That's the level you've chosen for yourself. So I responded by saying, we've got Andrew Doyle, satirical genius author. We've got David Starkey, greatest living historian. Peter Hitchens, one of our great journalists.
Josh Howie.
And Josh Howie as well. I didn't mention Josh. I had to keep it credible.
For all this,
but the point is, we have a very high level, and thank you for the support.
But, you know, for all this, we've got to remember that Twitter isn't real life, and people are... There's also been a lot of people exclaiming how much they're looking forward to the show that we eventually produce. Well, I'll be producing, and John is going to be hosting, which we'll be making next year. And, you know, I find it fascinating that so many people these people are getting upset about a show that hasn't even been made yet, hasn't even been fully... You know, the headline of that Guardian article talks about how it's John Cleese railing against cancel culture. That's not what the show is. They've just sort of decided this. It's very, very odd, isn't it?
Because now it's judgment goes across to association as opposed to content.
Right.
And that's the ever-expanding tribalism that we've seen over the last few years. It's which camp you put yourself in. And, of course, the purpose of GB News is to be... a sort of an open camp, or sort of, you know, let's put this campfire out, get different people coming in from different tribes to be able to talk through their positions and disagree.
You're on the left, Nick's on the right. You two couldn't be more different.
Yeah, but then the left or the far left would say that I'm right-wing because I railed against Corbyn's anti-Semitism and whatnot, and because I fight for women's rights, that makes me right-wing.
It's insane.
But that's the point of this channel is, if you have a different opinion, come on, and there are comics there. We try and book different comics for different things, and they just won't come on. It's insane.
And I tell you what, some of the reactions with like this headline in The Guardian, and you just think, you know, one of the things that John Cleese wants to talk about in the show will be the media, frankly, because of the way that the media behaves and misrepresents things for partisan purposes, and we can see it right here.
And the danger is that you've got people now who don't know how to actually have the debate because they have their tribe, they feel comfortable in it, and of course that's the danger. Is a lot of people, certainly from the left, who we're trying to get on, friends of comics who are friends of ours or whatever, people who rail against us, people who blocked us over the last year, and say, come on and just say your position. No, because they don't want to be challenged in any way, because they might have to actually think about these issues rather than just sprout the same old stuff to the echo chamber.
And also the guilt by association of simply appearing on the channel. And that's the point, like you say, it's the tribalism, very primitive tribalism. They don't engage their minds. It's the level of a sort of 5-year-old child. And what's hilarious is that as more and more mainstream figures come across to GB, they all get called far right. Eventually, the whole world's just going to be far right.
No, but for the far left, everybody is. You know, if you're not a part of the Socialist Workers' Party, you are far right.
This is another question, though, isn't it? Why is the comedy industry so captured by this weird kind of far-left, narrow-minded, I'd say it's infantile worldview? I mean, there's so many comedians now, people I used to respect, they can't think critically anymore. And they can only imagine these demons of their minds to rail against, and all the things they say about us are just simply not true.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Why comedy?
And it's saddening because there are people like... and what we saw with Jerry Sadowitz over the summer being cancelled from the Pleasance, and how comics who in their own interests didn't stand up fully against that. People like Stuart Lee, people who are heroes of mine, comedic heroes. And it's cowardice. I think it's people either fighting for their own position.
But isn't comedy supposed to be about thinking outside the box?
Of course it is.
So why are so many comedians going along with this group thing?
I heard an interesting theory that, you know, following the comedy boom in sort of the 90s, it just became a situation where there wasn't enough work to go around. It's actually quite competitive and hard to get work. So immediately, once it becomes an orthodoxy, everyone scrabbles around to prove they're the most adherent to it. Because there's not enough work to go around, and they can't risk being in the out group, whereas, of course, it's better just accept you're in the out group.
I actually think it's partly laziness. I became a comic because I'm lazy. And I think you can then just go, I'm on the left, so I'm just a good human being, without having to actually think about and justify your position. So it's much easier to just go, rather than come on here or whatever, it's much easier to point at everybody else and go, they're right-wing, they're scum, keep them away, rather than actually having to read a book, which sucks. I've read like 3 books since I've joined this channel.
Yeah, and one of them was mine, right?
One of them, half of them was yours.
You read half the book. The best bit's at the end, Josh.
Oh, is that
You
the
read
bit?
the second half
I just want to say here, it says here in the article, though, this from The Guardian, GB News, this is what they've finally relented. GB News has recovered to build a small but loyal audience. Thanks, guys. The best audience in the world.
Tuesday's Guardian and Number 10 is playing down rumours that marijuana could become a Class A drug. Josh, what is this conflict about?
Well, this is very good news here. Number 10 is rejecting reports that Braverman, over the weekend, she was basically saying that, putting out rumours there that she can make cannabis a Class A drug, which would put it up from 5 years to 7 years if you're caught with it, and for serious people, 14 years to life sentence for supply and production.
And what is Suella Braverman's argument here for increasing?
Well, she argues that it leads to
a gateway.
Yes, a gateway drug, which there is an argument for that. But over time, it hasn't been decriminalised, but there have been certainly people who've been caught with it will go on a course instead of going into the system. The good news is that Nick and I, our business venture, our cannabis shop, can now get back on track.
That is good,
which is good. Josh and Nick's Spliff Heaven. Very excited about that.
Good name.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, he's arguing about Nick and Josh and Nick. Anyway, whatever. We'll get to that. But what is actually really going on here is a bit of politics. It seems like Braverman is trying to sort of play to the core Conservative constituency of, going hard on drugs. Yeah. She's also made comments about other different about immigration and saying she wants to get the immigration down to like tens of thousands. She's going for the hardliners, perhaps sensing that putting herself in place if things were to progress.
So you think there are political machinations going on here? Ambitions?
These are politicians, after all. This is what they do. At least she's setting herself up just in case this sort of might happen. So Number 10, I think, has given her a little bit of a slap on the wrist and said, hey, no, this is definitely not happening.
Would she not have had to run this statement past Downing Street in advance? I would have thought, Nick.
She seems to have gone a little rogue because just as Truss said she's going to have more immigration to help growth, Braverman said we want less immigration. So she seems to be a little bit rogue. She likes to speak her mind. I do like Braverman. I was the first person in the media to say she'd run, and she did. But I also want to be tough on drugs, but I do actually agree with Josh that it's a little bit, again, of gesture politics, because what can the Tories really do? We've got immigration, which she has mentioned, to be fair. We've got cost of living. We've got the culture war that everyone tries to dismiss, but it's really important. We've got loads of issues. And then she's talking about drugs. Although I am on, pro being tough on drugs, it's not the top issue. But
also cannabis, Nick. I mean, these distinctions do matter. Heroin is much more severe than cannabis.
There's a case that cannabis is more severe than people think, because people like Peter Hitchens have written a book on it and said, actually, the psychoactive properties are more...
But that's like heavy sort of skunk, like you...
Yeah, but there is so much of that around now. So, and I also agree, like she's saying, that if you make it legal, you send this idea that it's just acceptable behaviour. We walk around London, we all smell it the whole time. I don't think that's a good thing. And
there is that thing of it's being done quite openly, isn't it? There is an oddity to that, isn't
it? It is. It's either illegal or it's not. We haven't enforced the laws for years. That's the point. That's why people just think they can do it. So we've got to decide. But yes, I mean, do the government actually control anything anyway, though? I've been reading a lot of Dominic Cummings lately, and he does claim that the government have no control over the government. And you do think Suella Braverman, even though I like the things she says, couldn't even stop her own department going to one of those woke training meetings.
Yeah.
So I wonder, can she really make this happen?
Don't you think? Doesn't the government need to present at least a united front at this particular time?
Of course they do, yeah.
They're stabbing each other on the back and getting rid of leaders and maybe voting out a next one. They need to be seen to be...
Absolutely, and certainly on this immigration issue, because as Nick was saying, Liz Truss is, talking very... we know we need more migrants to this country because we have some serious deficiencies in our NHS. They're desperate care homes, farms, but also, and I didn't know this before, broadband engineers. I didn't realise we didn't have enough broadband engineers.
As we said on the show the other day, the NHS is now even contemplating the idea of having members of staff who can't speak English because we're so desperate for the staff. I mean, Nick, you must see that there is a case there for we need more migrants.
there's a case for it. My thing would be no one ever leaves their own country ever, and we all just agree to that. That's zero immigration of any country. It's a fair deal. No one leaves.
We thought Suella Braverman was being hardline, but we've got Nick Dixon.
But also, Braverman also says she's claimed that sending migrants to Rwanda would be my dream. And it's like, well, maybe have another dream, like world peace, and there wouldn't be the need for this kind of migration, economic or not.
I found that moving. It reminded me of Martin Luther King. I liked it.
Well, there we go.
Thursday's Sun. Braverman again. She is now promising to make the streets safer for women, Nick, though, not by banning Indian immigrants, but...
I wouldn't like to suggest that. This is street harassment of women could be made illegal in months under new plans, as the Sun's gone with. And it's... To me, look, it seems like gesture politics. I'm anti-harassment. I want to make that clear. Yeah. But where is the line between what is harassment? We've had this before, this wolf whistling question, and inevitably these articles mention Sarah Everard, but this legislation is not going to bring back Sarah Everard, nor is it going to stop future Wayne Couzens people, because it's not going to stop real harassment and real crime.
That didn't start with wolf whistling.
No, of course. It's just going to, in my opinion, increase tension between the sexes. I mean, how is it actually going to work? Look, we've got so many massive problems at the moment. I just feel like this is one of these things politicians do. They throw this out as a little bit of me. But
if the police have no time to investigate burglaries or any number of other serious offences, what the hell are they going to fit this into?
Yeah, you do want more police on the street for general crime, but you want less vague legislation.
This stuff.
Well, you want less vague laws that police. They waste all this time on tweets.
Yeah.
And now this will be another thing they can waste time on.
This is like a tweet in real life. Somebody wolf whistles.
What we need is more Gillette-type adverts where men are shown restraining other men and
I think there is. I mean, obviously, it's great to be one of three men discussing this. But I mean, women do get a lot of grief. Sometimes even the ugly ones. So there does need to be something done about this. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a sort of positive step. But the thing is, legislation like this, it can't really work. Stuff like this needs to be a cultural thing, a manners thing, and you can't really legislate against it because then it'll criminalise legitimate chatting up a woman or
I disavow both your comments there. The ugly women joke because it was mean, and the one about three men discussing it because that's identity politics, and I don't believe
I'm joking. Look, ugly women get.
I also get wolf whistled occasionally walking through the streets of Brighton. So it's possible.
Brighton.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, I'm a man of a certain age. It's quite nice to know you still got it.
I just wish the government and the people in power would pay as much attention to the serious abuse of women and grooming gangs, rather than middle-class women getting whistled at or getting a hand
way out, I think.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens,
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Guardian now, Leo, and the funeral meats are barely cold, but Britain's transparency watchdog, I don't know if they have a name, is it Off Snitch or something? Anyway, they're demanding to have a poke about in Her Majesty's privates.
They do have a name. It's the Information Commissioner, apparently.
Right.
But apparently ministers could face contempt of court proceedings unless they respond to a request for documents that reveal how the late Queen concealed part of her private wealth from the public. So they asked this was a Freedom of Information request, I assume, to the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, which has stonewalled the request for 2 years, which you're not allowed to do under Freedom of Information requests.
Right.
So the size of the Queen's personal fortune, including her investments, has never been disclosed to the public, but estimates speculate that it's hundreds of millions of pounds, which I'd expect because she's a queen.
She's supposed to be quite wealthy, isn't she?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've seen her house.
Yeah.
I've seen her house. She's got other houses as well.
She's
There's
not
one
the
in Windsor.
most wealthy woman. She's certainly not the wealthiest. I mean, I don't think she's even in the top 100 in the country. I don't think she's even a billionaire.
Well,
I mean,
officially, but
yeah,
that's the question.
But it's soft power, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would imagine now that she's dead, some of that wealth will probably have to go through the usual chancery and sort of, there'll be some sort of execution of her estate or something.
There's no. They're exempt from inheritance tax and all that kind of stuff because there's some sort of rule about kings, which seems so unfair. Because if there's one group of people who can afford to pay the tax, it's heads of state.
They inherit the entire country.
I mean, apparently her crown is worth over £500. That's what I heard.
They should put it back in the Indian dirt where it came. That would restore the honour. I do remember she had some stuff in the Panama Papers, didn't she? And one of those other big reveals. That is a bit shady. I would rather she just had a big chest down in the vaults.
Yeah.
Would you rather like spilling out?
Yeah, like Scrooge McDuck.
By a dragon.
Yeah.
Friday's Mirror, and yesterday we heard of the amber alert of blood levels in the NHS, and now thousands of Brits coming to the rescue.
Yeah, so thousands of kind-hearted Brits have rushed to donate blood after the amber alert on low stocks. So the NHS blood and transplant service aims to always have 6 days supply, but this went down below 2 days, which obviously is a problem, could lead to surgery getting cancelled. And the Daily Mirror is, this was reported in a lot of papers, but the Daily Mirror has tried to claim credit. People coming forward to donate blood. They say, we launched a campaign to recruit the tens of thousands of regular blood donors needed as the NHS recovers. And it's like, well, people are seeing it on the BBC as well as your tiny little rag. So, I don't think, it's like me, you can't take credit for something that's happening.
But Josh, come on.
Well, it's just that I misheard it, and I've given sperm 3 times this week until I realised.
Like blood.
Well, maybe it was wishful thinking.
Well, there are shortages of that too, Josh. So
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No. It's all
You're
that
welcome.
Howie product is now out there.
The freezer aisle in Tesco.
This is going to Leo now, isn't it? This is Scots news. Nicola Sturgeon has been promised her very own My First Referendum kit for Christmas.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon is pushing for another independence referendum in Scotland. The last one was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation vote. And that was 8 years ago, which isn't a generation. Except
a generation in iPhones.
People are dying so young in Scotland now. It almost is a generation. We've got parity with badgers at the moment. So but she's gone to the Supreme Court. Her Lord Advocate, top Scottish law person, has gone to the Supreme Court and said that don't worry about the Scottish independence referendum. If we hold another independence referendum, because it'll be purely advisory. It won't actually have any legal weight or any binding effect. Obviously,
don't
Brexit.
Drink and drive. Yeah.
Well, Brexit was
that was purely
an advisory thing.
But
So
they promised, didn't they? That was the thing. They added a sort of my word is my bond.
But obviously, if it came back and 90% of Scottish people went crazy for whatever reason and wanted independence, they'd have to make it happen. So it's a nonsense that it would be advisory. I just can't believe that there's still support for the SNP. They've been in power for 15 years and they're paid so much money. If they left the UK, I don't know where they get all the money to paper over all the mistakes they're making. Like on every metric a government can be measured on health, education, life expectancy, drug deaths, everything, corruption, incompetence, everything. The SNP are absolutely failing. They get a huge amount of money from Westminster. For every £100 spent on somebody in the rest of the UK, Scotland gets £126 per person. That's the sort of, and it's just a bribe to sort of keep them in, and it's not working, and they want to leave. And like, for all that Brexit has been, certainly caused some economic and social and political upheavals, Scotland leaving would be way off the scale. It would be disastrous for Scotland. Imagine a hard border when you drive up there, and a different currency. I mean, how would trade possibly work? And Scotland does the vast majority, 66% of its trade with the rest of the UK.
Yes,
so
it's even more decisive than, I mean, the proximity of Britain to Europe was pretty decisive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We kidded ourselves that didn't really matter, but that wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
But this would be. And I cannot believe that that they have not noticed how utterly incompetent their government has been on all other fronts, except campaigning for independence. They've thrown everything at that.
Trouble. That's the trouble with a single-issue government. All they care about is independence, and they're failing on everything else. But the thing is, they've made it part of the independence claim because they blame everything that goes wrong in Scotland on Westminster. They say, Westminster's why we've got 3.5 times higher drug deaths than the rest of the UK.
It's like some kind of suicide vehicle, streaming towards its target with doors flying off, wheels coming off, but it's just determined.
And also, Nicola Sturgeon looks like all 3 kids from Harry Potter, so I don't trust her. Pick one.
And if they did get independence, within a fortnight, the SNP would be complete pariahs in Scotland for dragging them into this horrible political and economic turmoil.
I suppose at that point, in the same way that Nigel Farage has joined the GB News and enjoying a long Indian summer as a first-rate broadcaster, but he's done his job at that point, haven't you, I suppose, and she would be the same.
Yeah.
I don't know which channel would have her, though.
Previous SNP leaders have appeared on Russian television, whatever it's called, the Russian channel that was in the UK.
Do you have anything you need to say on this, Jonathan? You're wearing a vaguely tartan-coloured shirt.
Yes.
So I don't know if that seems
I didn't know I was on today.
The media missed the message.
Oh, yeah, I see. I only just got that.
We usually like to say the clock is ticking for TikTok, but GCHQ says not, in fact.
No, so the director of GCHQ, which is the government agency that deals with all communications on the internet and everything like that, Jeremy Fleming, he said he would encourage young people to use TikTok despite a campaign pledge by the Prime Minister Liz Truss to crack down on the Chinese video app and companies like it. So, there is concern that China's seeking to impose its values in strategic areas of science and technology. And I think TikTok forms part of a sort of, we're almost in a Cold War with China. And the whole of the West, America as well, is in a Cold War.
It's a third opium war.
Yeah. And TikTok is more addictive.
Yeah.
It's like children, the average amount of time spent is an hour and a half a day. That's insane. Wow. You could watch a Bond movie.
But they do flick. I've looked at it a couple of times. Jonathan and I have been talking about trying to chop up some of my content and put it on there. But it is incredible how quickly it snags you and gets you. It's like encountering a sea monster, isn't it? Like before you know it, you're underwater.
But the content that the algorithms boost in the West, because it's Chinese-owned, TikTok is Chinese-owned, so it boosts just degenerate content of just vapid sort of dancing, social malaise, everybody having, gender pronouns and all that sort of nonsense. Whereas in China, the same app promotes things like algebra and family values.
Really?
And things like that. Yeah. So it's really sinister how they're using it as a weapon to weaken the West. And they're doing the same thing with fentanyl as well. So most of the fentanyl in America and in the West is manufactured in China, and they're flooding the West with it to kill. And TikTok is also killing children. So
digital fentanyl.
These crazes go through TikTok where it's like, why don't you see how long you can hang from your neck? Literally stuff like that.
Oh, I know. Oh. And I mean, you might even say, to push it to an extreme, that their whole capacity for fast-moving consumer goods, I mean, they just addicted us to being able to anaesthetise ourselves with cheap consumer goods.
We should all go off grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
If you see TikTok in your child's phone, smack that phone out of its hands.
And smack the child. Oh, no, we don't.
But GCHQ, man, he says, no, just use it, just think before you use it. Well, that's nothing, is it?
Somebody wants to watch teenagers dance. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure he's great.
You know for a fact that I saw two interesting things. I mean, we've known for years that people like Zuckerberg and Jobs and Gates don't even let their kids have smartphones until they're at least 13.
Yeah.
Somebody else said online the other day, I think it was Rockefeller he was talking about, John D. Rockefeller, wealthiest man in history, but adjusted for inflation. basically didn't let his children out the house until they were 7. He had them homeschooled, and all their tutors were like handpicked by him.
Wow.
And they were not exposed to any contrary or conflicting ideas or ideologies that he wouldn't agree with or hadn't explicitly signed off until they were 7, and then they were allowed to go and mingle with their peers. And as a result, he says, that is why the Rockefeller Institute to this day sustains and maintains its power base, whereas very often, you get a...
Has that been done every generation?
From wealth to rags to riches and back to rags again every generation.
That's something he did every generation. So
I think that bit has been drilled into them. You keep the young Rockefellers are kept at home and they are homeschooled until they're 7.
Maybe that's going a bit far, but definitely TikTok. Delete TikTok off the phone.
The Independent next, and some breaking news from the States, Nick, on Alex Jones.
Yeah, Alex Jones forced to pay more than $1 billion for his Sandy Hook lies. The Independent's word, I would go with mistakes. They've also called him a right-wing extremist. He's been very anti-Bush and things like that. So we know the Independent aren't going to be fair about this. But look, it's a very emotive case. Jones made big mistakes. He talked about Sandy Hook as if it didn't happen. He got down this conspiracy rabbit hole. I've talked about it before on GB. I'm in this unenviable position of defending Alex Jones. But really what's happened is they've gone after him in this case. It does seem a disproportionate fine. I mean, I think it's about sending a message. What he did was bad. He's apologised long ago. He hasn't harassed anyone personally, but people have harassed these parents allegedly, and they say, well, it's because of the things he said. They've really gone after him.
He said the whole thing was a hoax, right? And that the parents who were presenting their children as having been killed, which they were actors.
Yeah.
I mean,
he questioned it initially. It does sound, obviously
it's kind of insane, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And then his followers went out and harassed
I've just said
the
that.
parents of the dead kids in the street and in restaurants.
If you let me finish it, because this is quite important.
Yeah, let's hear you justify this, Nick.
Well, if you're going to set it up like that, it's ridiculous. Well, there is a problem because there is a free speech issue because this case sets a precedent that you won't be allowed to talk about these things. What about the Las Vegas shooting where we still don't know what happened? There's also a privacy law that they've brought in with this in Connecticut whereby you won't be able to... you won't be able to talk about the shootings if families are involved. Now, the danger is the Uvalde shooting, we needed to know what happened because there was police incompetence. So there's a danger that you won't be able to do anything, and actually the FBI will be able to sue you in future if you say anything.
So are you suggesting that you think this court case has been has tried to steer the law or the precedent towards suppressing discussion, open discussion of this kind of thing in the future?
Yeah, but I think the threshold that has to be met under the law in this case is far away from criticising the actions of the police in Uvalde, where the police, stopped parents going in and the police didn't.
The interesting thing, though, Jones he's not like a single-issue commentator, is he? He's been a thorn in the side of the establishment for some time, and I do agree with you to some extent because he has raised some issues that people laughed at initially and turned out to be true.
The Bohemian Grove turned out to be real, Bilderberg Group turned out to be real.
And to be honest, the gay frogs thing turned out to be real.
Yeah.
The degree to which, the endocrine disruptors in the water supply have absolutely, unquestionably been proven to have all kinds of powerful effects on adult human hormone systems, which is essentially what he was talking about. And the gay frogs thing is an absurd kind of colloquial way of talking about it, but alligators, for instance, are being fished out of the Florida swamps all the time now with such horrifically deformed genitals that they cannot reproduce. The alligators, you might not think would be a terrible loss to Florida.
Have they been at the Tavistock clinic?
But they are, this is on the same spectrum as that. People are saying that, is it something to do with that? Well, maybe it is. And this huge sudden explosion in trans as an issue which didn't exist at all 20 years ago. Yeah. Is that connected with massive escalation of chemicals in the water supply? And this is the kind of stuff he talks about, and he makes it entertaining and fun. And then, of course, he also has this terrible... it is indefensible what he said about the Sandy Hook thing, I think. He
got down this rabbit hole because we know that there's been so many lies that he started to think, well, everything's a lie. And I'm not excusing that, but I do think there's a danger that we get emotional about this issue, fair enough. And then, to me, the enemies of Alex Jones are a bigger danger than Alex Jones. You've got the government going after people like this. They've gone after Trump with the Mar-a-Lago raid. They've gone after Bannon. They've gone after Roger Stone in an unnecessary way. They've gone after Peter Navarro. We see the government. It's ideologically driven because he's a like you say, a thorn in the establishment.
I understand what you're saying. And also, what does it even mean to be given $1 billion fine? I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, he's bankrupt, basically. Once you're bankrupt,
no, but this is how courts. He's making a lot of money from his exploits. It's something like $230,000 a day he was turning over. So he's not, he's got money. I don't know if he's got $1 billion, but he's got a lot of money. And these fines, this is the first. They actually cap the amount that the fine can be. Right. This is just the sort of first round of setting the sentence.
Well, maybe Elon Musk will step up for him anyway. We'll see. Leo, this is the Daily Mail now with further sordid details from the crew of everyone's favourite trans sleaze outrage machine, Mermaid.
What a great line. Parents of children who use transgender charity Mermaids have complained to the watchdog after an employee reportedly posted explicit pictures and sexualised images as a schoolgirl online. So this is Darren Mew, until recently a digital engagement officer at the charity who identifies as they, them. Of course he does.
Mew itself sounds like a weird pronoun, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mew too.
He's done a Mew. He shared a picture of, well, they say themselves, it's obviously a fella, shared a picture of himself on Instagram showing an upward view through a short skirt he was wearing. I think we've got that picture. Oh, no, we don't. But Mew also appeared in a collection of pictures for LGBT outlet House magazine in which he was naked holding his erect penis with pairs of breasts that have further penises protruding from them. So not the ideal candidate for a charity working with children.
Right.
I mean, imagine my surprise. And it comes after a Mermaid's trustee was revealed to have spoken at a pro-paedophile conference. And this is a problem with transgender charities because, the whole transitioning thing, it's sort of breaking the bond with parents. They say, if your parents are opposed to this, they're transphobic, so, you don't need to tell your parents. So they break that link, and parents are usually the best people to look after children. Sure. Also, they're saying children can consent to surgery at young ages and hormones and things like that. And, so the implication is if they can consent to something as serious as surgery or, long-standing, chemical castration or whatever, what else can they consent to? And it also freezes children in a prepubescent state until they reach the age of consent. So the whole thing is, I'm not saying that's, obviously Mermaid's charity.
But these are propositions that would appeal to somebody.
If somebody was a paedophile, this is something they, this would draw, like a religious organisation might. This is the sort of thing that, provides access to children and all the problematic things that would engender paedophilia.
Did you mention him just then, Jacob Breslow, who was the one only a couple of days ago?
That was the one who spoke at the conference.
Yeah. It is a very worrying trend. I mean, I dare say that there are journalists now, probably at the Daily Mail, who are, employed full-time to rake through every single previous Mermaid employee, everyone who ever delivered a package or who, swept the path and find out if there's any dirt. But it doesn't feel like they're having to dig that deep, does it, to come up with this kind of muck?
Well,
what do you think, John?
Yeah, it really does seem to be sort of scandal after scandal. And is that just indicative that there's, a problem at the very core of that whole kind of the culture of that?
It feels like it's going to collapse pretty soon. I think Mermaids, it can't survive very much longer. It's a bit like, there's a different type of scandal, but the children's charity... the one in Brixton a few years ago, the children's charity, where do you remember that one, the... Batman.
Batman Gilida or whatever.
Camilla.
Dressed like a hot air balloon.
Yeah, and she had been. I think it had been a very, again, probably well-intentioned charity to get young urban kids back on the straight and narrow, but it turned out they'd just been handing out money left, right, and centre, and it was corrupt.
This is why I never give to charity. It's not the reason. The reason is that I want to spend the money on myself.
Yes.
But it's a good side effect of me not giving money to charity.
Absolutely. Well, the whole economic theory is founded on the proposition that your vices are what keep the country ticking over.
But this, the transitioning children thing, I would think it's a huge scandal. It's already breaking with the Tavistock, which is a child transitioning service. So they've got, I think, over 1,000 families suing them for malpractice and maltreatment. And this is a huge scandal that's just going to keep breaking as more of these things.
Get your money out of Mermaids as quickly as possible, if I was you, Bank of England.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Right, moving on now to Friday's Times. Harry Enfield, Josh, this is an interesting story.
Yeah, he was no-platformed for blackface in Nelson Mandela show. But what this is really about is they've had a look into what's called quiet no-platforming.
This is at Oxford University, right?
The Oxford Union, looking at different people who might, but not just Oxford, actually. Supposedly in Cardiff, Tony Blair was rejected because they thought he might be picketed. So I'm sure do you write about this in your book? I haven't read it yet, but...
What, about no platforming?
Quiet no platforming.
No, because this is a new development. No, what I do say in my book
Second edition.
No, I'm not touching it now. What I do say about no platforming is that a lot of it is preemptive, right?
Yeah.
So what sort of happens is, because obviously universities have got to the point where they don't want to be seen to be no platforming people because they know it looks bad. So they just sort of agree among themselves, we're not going to have this kind of person, that kind of person. And a lot of the people just don't get invited, and I think it's a real problem. I mean, this is a bit backdoors, isn't it? And Harry Enfield's a really funny comedian who's, why shouldn't he be there?
Absolutely. Well, look, everyone uses the term cancel culture. I'd like to come up with coward culture.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, let's see if that catches
like
on.
that.
Okay, let's see. Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, that's really good. What do you think? I mean, look, the question specifically about Harry Enfield here is that he did this Nelson Mandela sketch. It was a recurring sketch on his TV show, and it was so silly and ridiculous that it's funny. I guess he's wearing black makeup, but it's in the service of a comedic thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you start, I would be interested to see if there were no platforming Justin Trudeau, who was doing it for far more frivolous reasons, I would have thought. But I mean, what do you think in terms of Harry Enfield? Should he have done that sketch? Should he not?
Well, Harry Enfield's whole thing was doing characters and making himself physically look like those characters. So, to not do Nelson Mandela like that would have meant excluding Nelson Mandela from representation in his act, which would have been unfair.
Do you think it was a racist sketch, Josh?
No, I don't think. But then, of course, again, it goes down to context.
Yeah.
At the time and what he was saying with it, and we had a story the other day about Lee Francis, who did Craig David and all these other people, and of course you had Little Britain as well. This is part of the norm. So I think actually when Harry Enfield not apologising, I think is respected.
Well, I wonder about this because this article talks specifically about how the Oxford Union has decided not to invite him after he had no regrets. That's what the phrase, no regrets about playing Nelson Mandela. So is that why he's being punished? Because the fact that he's not being repentant and sort of getting on his knees and clawing at the turf and saying, forgive me, please. Is that what it's about,
Well, repentance doesn't seem to work anyway. That just feeds the beast.
No,
yeah,
exactly.
But it's the sort of silent way they do it now. And this happened to me today. My promoter has pulled my tour because so many venues are just refusing to book me in.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. And on what grounds?
They say I'm problematic, transphobic, all the bad words.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, and it's I think if you're going to play a venue, it should be based on how many tickets can you sell, because people.
I mean, you didn't sell any tickets either.
Well, I didn't get a chance to. But I mean, I'll arrange something else. But yeah, I think it's ridiculous that people can be moral arbiters and police what other people can see and hear.
The only arbiter should be the audience, whether they choose to buy a ticket or not, and when they get there, whether they choose to laugh or not.
Yeah.
Like promoters and venues need to start butting out and just booking comics.
Yeah.
And letting people decide, right? Mm-hmm. OK, there we go. We've solved that one.
Thursday's Mail. Playtime's over for the candy shops of Oxford Street, Leo. Well, let's hope so.
So trading standards and police officers have raided souvenir, toy and sweet shops on Oxford Street suspected of dealing in counterfeit goods. So the council said it seized more than 14,000 items yesterday with an estimated value of £215,000 from 2 shops. I mean, bear in mind, I've seen the prices in these shops. That's about 3 packets of M&Ms.
Yeah.
They're really overpriced. And some stores, they've also been accused of evading taxes, up to £8 million in business rates. So they've got this scam where they open a shop, don't pay the rates, close it down, open another one, and sublet it and all the rest of it. And they sell fake stuff. They sell fake Willy Wonka chocolate bars and fake Rolexes.
Hey, with no gold card inside.
Yeah,
no chance of winning a visit to the factory.
Who's buying a Rolex in a chocolate shop?
You sure these are pucker? Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
Coin. I mean, a fool and their money. But apparently, they use TikTok to lure in children. They've been described as child catchers. They use TikTok to lure children into the store, where the children then spend lots of money.
Well, they are very vivid and hideous blights on the high street, but then again, Oxford Street has always been full of that. I cannot remember, I first went to Oxford Street in the 70s and was shocked by the depraved nature of most of the shop fronts and the offer.
I always think they must be dodgy, because how can they afford the Oxford Street rent?
Yeah.
You've got, like, the Nike flagship store next to, like, UK Sweets with a Z. How are you affording it?
And much busier.
Yeah. And it sort of reminds me of, there's a Christmas tree shop near where I live, and I'm like, you can't make a viable business off just Christmas trees all year. So people are suspicious of that shop as well.
Well, it's like cash converters, and I don't want I make it clear, this is just my kind of impression of cash converters. I have no evidence but I always look at the second-hand goods, and you might wonder whether they aren't being fenched, but let's assume they've come there legitimately. They're really overpriced. I mean, they're like almost full price for a 3-year-old iPad or a Yamaha keyboard.
Yeah.
It has that kind of wit. You're kind of thinking there's something to the business model I'm not quite getting here. I don't know what it is.
Think it's going to be cheap because it's a cash converter.
Yeah.
And then they get in, so they buy it, and they don't realise it's cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly, and you actually get a contract with it and everything else. But I do wonder sometimes with these things, well, obviously this is the case with these people, it's small beer, isn't it? 215 grand's worth of vapes and fake Gucci phone cases, I mean...
Yeah, but I think it's all this, the illegal goods and the £8 million in business rates, that's what they're really worried about.
Yeah.
I'm Andrew Doyle, and I'm joined by 2 guests who are very much like Marmite, cheap and full of yeast. I've got Sajila Kershi, who's stroking my book for some reason, and I've got Nick Dixon as well. Now...
No book.
No book. Saturday's Mail now. Fake nails, fake lips and fake orgasms. Is there nothing women won't fake?
Oh, God, it sounds like an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Half of you was down there in the corner when he used to be a nice guy. We used to like him.
Before he slapped comedians.
Huh?
Before he started
slapping comedians, our people.
Yeah, our people.
Our community, yeah.
There we go.
So women apparently fake orgasms because they feel insecure about being seen as abnormal or dysfunctional for not actually reaching climax, study finds. Now, this is interesting because I've never understood women why they would fake it, but apparently they're saying that if they feel insecure in a relationship or abnormal, they don't. So what they'll do is they'll cover the guys up and they'll sort of say, "Oh, you've done really well."
Yeah.
And that's a lie. That's a lie. If you're lying about that, what else are you lying about? And also, women who are less satisfied in their relationships will also fake, which means there's a problem in the relationship that you need to address.
Are you suggesting, though, I mean, that's a white lie, isn't it? Because that's a lie that is intended to comfort someone and to, it's it comes from a good place. I don't think it's the same as, like, you know...
I've never understood this. It's like, you know, and so many women aren't really honest. Like, I spoke to a friend recently, and she said, oh, you know, multiple orgasms. And I said, look, no, it's not like one week and the next week, that's not a multiple orgasm. Like, not knowing that you can have all these things, because you're lying in relationships. So if you can't have sex and physically you can't bear to have them near you, there's something wrong with the relationship. If you are faking it because you don't want to hurt their feelings, then you're denying yourself your own pleasure.
Nick, don't you think most marriages become pretty sexless pretty soon?
I've never been married, Andrew, but a couple of things here. Well, it's hard for us to talk about you because you're gay and me because this would never happen to me. But the interesting part of the study actually contradicts what you're saying, that it's a white lie, because this study suggests that women do it not because they're worried about their partner, because they'll feel abnormal and weird, but they don't actually care about their partner. Yes, whereas it says up to... But hang on.
Well. Huh? It does say partner as well. Their partner.
My reading was different. It says that here, well, apparently up to a quarter of men may have faked orgasm. Yeah, a bit harder to do. Yeah. Not sure how that works. Maybe there's props involved. But they do it. The men do it because we're worried about the partner feeling bad, whereas the women just do it because they're worried about themselves. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, well, you would get that.
That's in the article.
You spun this as an anti-woman article. Go on, Sabrina.
Can I just say what a sexist thing they say? So the main reasons for the pretense for men is due to poor sexual experience or not making the best choice of a partner. They didn't say that about the women, that they're making a bad choice. They're just saying, oh, they're just, like, insecure and they're feeling, like, bad and they don't want to make the guy feel bad.
You've missed where it says that some of them feign it on grounds of making their partner feel better about themselves. You missed the nice part about men.
But that's an afterthought.
I think this is just about... They're just being polite. Thank you for joining us for Headliners Best of the Week. Join us again at 11 o'clock tonight and every night to get the first look at tomorrow's top news stories. Bye for now.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking dry with plenty of sunny spells for most, with scattered showers in the northwest. Let's take a look at the details. Scattered, locally heavy showers mainly in the west, with the driest conditions and best of the sunny spells in the east. It'll be a windy, gusty start too. A blustery and mostly dry start across Northern Ireland with sunny spells, although the odd, locally heavy shower also likely in the north. Scattered, locally heavy showers across northwest England with some sunny spells. It'll be a windy start with potential gale-force gusts along the coast. It'll be a blustery start to the day, especially around the coasts, with local gales possible. Mainly dry with plenty of sunny spells, although the odd heavy shower remains possible at first. There'll be a fresh westerly wind and chilly start across East Midlands. East Anglia will have a dry start to Sunday morning with plenty of early sunshine across the board. Initially breezy, but winds gradually easing. A chilly start for all. A chilly start across southern England with only a light breeze. It'll be mostly dry with plenty of early Sunday sunshine, although the odd coastal shower is possible. Fine, dry and sunny for most. Showers easing across the northwest, while gales and heavy rain gradually approach from the west. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Faro.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
On Mark Dolan tonight, the actress Miriam Margolyes has issued an expletive-laden attack on new Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. If her politics were different, her career would be over. Shocking double standards exposed in my big opinion monologue in just a moment. I'm not pulling my punches. Has Liz Truss got the will to carry on? We'll get the definitive answer from the TV lie detector himself, world-famous body language expert Darren Stanton. Graham Norton attacks John Cleese and defends cancel culture. I'll be dealing with Graham Norton in my take at 10. Plus tomorrow's papers with full panel reaction, and my Mark Meets guest is a best-selling self-help guru who may be able to inspire you in your career, your love life, and your finances. Mimi Bland is the creator of the $1 Billion Mindset, and she's live at 10. So, is it okay to verbally abuse politicians? Well, it depends on your politics by the looks of it. That's the topic of my big opinion monologue in 3 minutes' time, straight after the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Interest rate increases could be bigger than previously thought. That's the warning from the Governor of the Bank of England. Speaking in Washington, Andrew Bailey said a stronger response may be needed to fight inflation. The central bank is set to announce its next monetary policy decision on November the 3rd. Investors are widely expecting another hike in the base rate.
The MPC will respond to all this news at its next meeting in just under 3 weeks from now, just after the 31st of October. This is the correct sequence, in my view. We will know the full scope of fiscal policy by then. But I repeat what I've said already. We will not hesitate to raise interest rates to meet the inflation target. And as things stand today, my best guess is that inflationary pressures will require a stronger response than we perhaps thought in August.
More than 5 million homes could face an annual mortgage repayment rise of more than £5,000 by the end of 2024. That's according to think tank the Resolution Foundation. They're saying the increase follows the recent mini-budget, which saw banks pulling deals from the market. The average 2- and 5-year fixed-term mortgage rates are currently at their highest levels since 2008. The Chancellor has admitted that the government went too far, too fast in its push to grow the economy. Jeremy Hunt says his focus will be stability, but difficult decisions on spending and tax will need to be made to get debt falling. He has, however, promised to protect and help struggling families and businesses when he sets out the government's fiscal plan at the end of this month. The footballer Mason Greenwood has been charged with attempted rape. The Manchester United forward is due to appear in court on Monday. He's also accused of coercive behaviour and assault. The 21-year-old was first questioned in January over the allegations after images and videos were posted online. The Crown Prosecution Service says all 3 counts relate to the same person. And in a developing story, a Russian news agency claims at least 11 people have been killed and 15 wounded at a military training ground in southern Russia. The unconfirmed reports quote Russia's defense ministry as saying that 2 people opened fire on volunteers training to fight in Ukraine. The 2 assailants have also died, according to these reports. We'll bring you more on this story as we get it. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back now to Mark Dolan.
Many thanks to the brilliant Ray Addison.